Good day. Good day to you. Today I want to bring you a discussion on 12 houses of influence that have been active in your life. First house, of course, is your mother's womb. Then I want to show you the hour of the entry of the hour of iniquity. You might even call it the hour of the entry of the thief. Things that got lost, misplaced in your life. Destinies derail. That's the subject I want to enter in, and also have a discussion on whether gay is in the genes or it's a choice. So these are the things that I want to get into. But to begin with, I like to give a little brief summary on the situation with the virus. Now you know that the Delta may have changed to Kappa and Lambda, and yesterday a Colombian variety has appeared in US. I don't know whether they are going to call it Epsilon. So what keeps happening is the configuration of the spike protein changes with each mutation. Mutation is in the mRNA. Effect is on the spike protein. When the configuration of the spike protein changes, a worry comes up whether the present antibodies generated will be effective or not. What we need to know is that early home therapy will be effective, and some recent research has found cinnamon aldehyde is effective, so cinnamon tea kind of thing. Then yesterday they had a report saying the bromelain in pineapple, if you eat pineapple with minimum skin cleaning, we know that we can't eat the skin wholesale, but with minimum skin cleaning, there's a substance there that prevents the lung reaction getting worse. So the Ceylon cinnamon aldehyde study says that the dexamethasone dose used to prevent the lung immune infiltration getting worse, that dexamethasone dose can be reduced by using Ceylon cinnamon aldehyde. That's how the Netherlands study has named it. If any of these clips, studies, references you want, please send me a message to my WhatsApp number. Do not phone. It's only meant for WhatsApp messaging. +94 76 313 4800. And my app is available, Golden Nuggets by DR.Lalith Mendis, for free download. All my clips previously done are available on it. It's available from Google for Androids and on Apple Store. So these are some brief considerations. It's always good to keep the sanitary measures. So the 12 houses of influence, let's look at it like this. 1, from your mother's womb. More than we know, the baby in the womb is bonded to the mother. For instance, the baby will not kick when the mother is asleep. He knows that she is asleep. So when you are pregnant, if baby's kicking wakes you up from sleep, you must know that the baby is in distress. The baby is so connected to the mother, even from that time. Then by about the 30th week of pregnancy, baby begins to recognize the mother's voice. And we always knew there's a thing called maternal deprivation syndrome. That is how the mother feels affects the baby. And it affects his physical growth adversely. Now it is known that prostaglandin E moves around in the baby's brain, attending on brain tracts, depending on the inputs mother's brain sends to the child via prostaglandins and of course other neurochemical transmitters. So mother's fast digital life can affect the baby. But that's just, by the way, what happens in the mother's womb, which is the first house, how it influences the baby. Secondly, father's ancestry is another house in which we begin to live whether we know or not. Then mother's ancestry, that's the third house. Fourthly, ancestors before that, grandparents, great-grandparents, their ancestry begins to have effects, their what shall I call them, heredity begins to have effect on you, not only merely through genome as we know traditionally. Now we know epigenetics, that is to say behavioral patterns of a person can pass through genetic, what shall I call it, influences. So, for instance, my major research for the past 7 years was on the digital screen and its effect. I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last substantive post was as head of Department of Pharmacology in the State Medical Faculty. My last research for the last 7 years was on the effect of the digital screen, and 40% for the cause of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is the digital exposure of the child in the mother's womb, soon after that in bonding, and even after the early bonding period, as well as formative years. So first 5 years, never give the digital screen is what I always say. So, excuse me. So this is how you need to, the current frame rate is too low. Please set the frame rate. So you need to know that there's such a close link with the baby in the womb and the mother's behavior, and then he begins to recognize the mother's voice from about the 30th week, and from about the 34th week he even recognizes the father's voice. So this is about the houses in which we begin to live. So we came up to the epigenetics, getting on to the inheritance of a baby. Then fifthly, racial characteristics or racial prejudices. Sixthly, the school, education, educational presumptions, and of course the influence of a strong teacher. Then seventhly, geographical location, caste prejudices, caste attitudes, cultural habits, all that begins to become houses in which we live, and the practices that go on, the put downs you begin to feel. So all these things, and then our work field, work training, vocational field, and the practices of a professional field, required practices of a professional field, begin to influence us, as we know, in our psyche, in our different ways, in our emotions, in our spirit, when it becomes input, automatically without knowing there's an output. And out from these houses come 7 invasions. My suggestion and hypothesis is there's a particular hour that some of these influences got into you. I'll repeat it. Remember hour when things went really not good. So that first thing is called the trap that clipped your wings. You have heard the statement, clip your wings, isn't it? That clipped your wing. Then comes the hour. So that means you're doing well, and suddenly, unbeknown to you, there was a trap set according to your behavioral pattern, and the trap was waiting to meet you, and it happened in a certain hour, in a certain place, in a certain way, with a certain person. So you may recall such things. You need to make a note down of it, because what you are ultimately now is the sum total of the influences of these 12 houses in which you have moved. Another house I did not mention, I should have mentioned, is a very strong person who influenced you outside your family. All those things get written into the way we behave and so on. Then I want to take you to the second invasion. First invasion is this trap that sprung. It was as if set up and waiting for you according to your behavioral habitat. And your wings were clipped. You were not the same person who went in and came out. I have found, taking case histories with people who increased their alcoholic input, there was a day that they really felt, there was a day they went out of their mind, they drank themselves out. They drank themselves out. They went off. They just went off, meaning they lost consciousness, and the man who awakes after that was not the same man. Different things have happened to him during that passing out. That's a trap. The second one is the arrow that comes from far. So it may be a person is targeting you with a campaign of calumny or whatever it is, or you don't know the source of it. The arrow came from far. It hit you at a certain time. It targeted you. The third one is a terror by night. That is a thing that is, you can't quite explain it. It's not just cultural, it's a fact. For instance, I had a case when I was the registrar of the Prophet of Medicine in Colombo. A boy from a Colombo school went to see Exorcist 2. This is actual case record, case history. Exorcist 2 is a film that came around 1977 or something by the time it came to Sri Lanka. And he went to see it, and next morning he did not come for breakfast, and when they went to check, they heard a lot of sounds in his bedroom, and the father broke open the door. This boy was up on the bed with fighting an unseen enemy with bed poles and different things, and he was never the same. He was admitted to our ward. We tried this, that and the other. He did not improve, and parents took him home to do different kind of ceremonies that they believe in. So that hour of iniquity that entered into him was a modern film. So we must not disregard those things. So that is a terror by night. Then the next thing is a disease that comes from not clear origins. Let me give you a case history. There was a rich businessman. His wife had one baby at that time, one girl child at that time. She began to soon off at different times. Now this case history, mind you, case history. This is what was medically encountered in the case history. And when she swoons off, and before she swoons off, a blue bottle fly comes in, they saw, and then she swoons off. And when she gets, and she becomes, she does not know what she's doing. She's throwing clothes aside, turning tables or whatever. Then with great difficulty, she's physically restrained. Then she passes off, and she wakes up and says, what happened? What happened? And what they did was the parents would clear everything up, and even the husband, and then they did not know what. She was taken to hospital. She was diagnosed as having a hemolytic anemia. That means the blood group, the blood cells break up too fast, the red blood cells, and then it was down to 7. Normally a healthy rich woman should be at least 13 hemoglobin, never less than 12. It was down to 7. Then when they did the test, they found there's a hemolytic anemia, couldn't find the cause for it, and there are Coombs tests and different things they do, and they suggested a blood transfusion because it was down so down. They got scared, and then in the history, when we took the history, we found the husband said, my partner took me to do a certain ceremony. I did not know he was trying to take over my business. It is after the ceremony that all this trouble hit us. 2 accidents. My Benz met with an accident. They had another vehicle that met with an accident, and he was down to his Beetle Volkswagen. And this wife's thing came. Thankfully, it was well redeemed. The situation was redeemed over a period of 4 to 8 weeks. So I just gave you the hour of iniquity that came into a family through a disease that medicine didn't quite understand. Then, of course, COVID is a terrible thing. Any dangerous disease can come at you. Then there's another phenomenon that you must not mix. It's called the noonday destruction. That is, you are doing so well, set to do well, and suddenly something goes very dark. And it can come down the family. Let me tell you a true case, again a case history. There was his dad, and his son was very keen to get into medical faculty, and those days there was a private medical college in Sri Lanka. But dad was into alcohol, and he had something went wrong with his job, and at the age of 40 he lost his job. As a result, the son could not get into do further studies, higher studies. He was very disappointed, and but he got into another field and became deputy CEO in time. and he turned 40. Then the chairman of the company picked up a squabble with him over nothing, and said, "You'll never amount to anything," and really put him down. I don't want to hear, how corporate chairmen can speak. He was very crestfallen, but he came for one of our sessions, and he went through this story, and thankfully we were able to help him. And the result is that what the chairman said didn't happen. In fact, he did very well. Today he is the CEO of that company, which is an island-wide company that's doing very well. But the point is that at the age of 40, the same destruction at noonday, downfall at noonday, came at him. So there's a promise from the Good Shepherd that he crowns us with loving kindness and tender mercy, and he redeems our life from ruin and rundown. So ruin and rundown is a thing that can happen to someone who's doing very well. What is that phenomenon, ruin and rundown? It may be on his own part he takes a foolish decision. Without adequate investigation, he did an unwise, virtually suicidal investment, and he came down. So this phenomenon that comes, it's not enough to be on the summit. Just jump and see. Then only you get how high you are. This jump and see, take you to the summit and jump and see. It's an ancient phenomenon which engineered a noonday destruction, meaning a noonday come down. So those are 7 invasions that can happen to you, coming from the source of it from any one of those houses that I described earlier. Now I want to enter into a little what can we do. There's a promise that the Good Shepherd says, "I will work with you that you will have no lack," because this lack thing, I'm lacking. It's from my father's era, mother's era, boss's era. Lack. Country's problem. Lack. That haunting sense of, gnawing sense of lack. Where does it come from? So Good Shepherd says, if you walk with me, I'll take care of you, that you will not feel this lack. Secondly, he says, I will lead you into more, because more, the next boundary and next stretch, is always in the heart of man. For young people, the dad is the one to train. So you must keep 7 o'clock, happy family hour, to do that kind of training for the next step, next stretch. You keep a happy family hour to prevent this hour of iniquity coming from any house of influence that you or your family are involved in. Some of it you may not even know. What house of influence is bringing this hour of iniquity? Iniquity is an old word. Iniquity means something that recurrently goes wrong that you can't quite understand. So you had this good gift, and it was the Good Shepherd's intention that it grows to a complete gift, but in between something happened. Hurt, horror, then humiliation, hatred, same thing again and again. That's called hexes. That's the old English word. Same thing again and again. You don't know why. Inexplicable. Whatever I start, it goes wrong. That kind of feeling can come in a family line. This happened to my dad. I'm told it happened to my grandfather. That kind of thing. So the Good Shepherd's promise is that he makes it adequate, sufficient, not inadequate, with contentment. Then he leads you to more. There's wisdom that comes to choose this and not choose that. So this is the thing I saw, that in our life there are seeds that are for long-term good working. There are seasonal ones that come and go. Some people take so much time on the seasonal things that come and go. The long-term good structure they need to develop with their children, family, they miss out on. So that is the long-term growth. Third place is very important, third principle, that is, what if you miss something? There's a place called place of restoration. That is to get it right as if it did not go wrong. Get it right as if it did not go wrong. So for children also, you don't put red cross marks. You like to give them plus marks, not red wrong cross marks. So human beings are into righting wrongs, W-R-I-T-I-N-G. Good Shepherd is into righting wrongs, R-I-G-H-T-I-N-G, righting wrongs. So the 2 different lifestyles, 2 different talking styles, 2 different management styles. So 7 p.m. is the time you must take the kid for a nice time, good reading, then happy meal time. I always say meal is oxytocin time, serotonin time. Don't ask about mathematics at school time, what went wrong. Take those after the meal time. So you must keep a place of restoration, hour of restoration, to prevent the hour of iniquity. You as dad have to take the steps. You can't give all this over to mom. So remember that principle, hour of restoration. In that place, you put things right that went wrong. So this is the principle of the Good Shepherd. This is the principle of the cross principle. He absorbs our written wrong, and he gives a plus mark by a process, of course. So you have to provide the hour of restoration. So 1, Good Shepherd says, I'll make you have enough. 2, then to go for more. I will lead you with wisdom that comes from above. And then the place of restoration for recovery of things that went wrong. And then comes pathways that lifelong can be followed. They are called pathways of rightness. There are no crooked bends, there are no rough places, there are no low potholes, there are no sudden boulders on which you stumble. A pathway woven through with wisdom and knowledge that you can practice. So you can consider this and see. Now, as I told you, any subject I have touched up to now, you can antibodies, antigens, and how it is going, drugs, pharmacology. You can send me a WhatsApp message to +94 76 313 4800. So that in your destiny, the best you have, if you don't work out for it with the Good Shepherd, there will be hurt, humiliation, horror, hatred, some go that way, and the hexes, that is the why good things, seemingly great and possible things, but they turn sour. Why do sweet things turn sour? That's a phenomenon of life. I'm passionate on this because with my A-level exam, I came first in the island, sitting from St. Thomas's College, doing botany, zoology, chemistry, physics, and I entered Colombo Medical Faculty. Every exam I was batch topped in the Colombo Medical Faculty. So I have a passion that people live satisfied because the Good Shepherd provides for a world with contentment. World with discontentment spews out worse than COVID is my slogan. Now finally I touch on this delicate, controversial topic. Is gay in the genes? Because young people come and ask this. I am 14 and why is this phenomenon coming up more? Now, Professor Paul McHughes, you can refer him up. He was Professor Emeritus Psychiatry, long distinguished career at Johns Hopkins. He has categorically said, after much research, huge treatise he has written, nearly 400 pages on this, and the principle therein is gay is not in genes but in choice. Some time ago, this issue was when the father is aggressive and mother has to do everything including defend. The boy child begins to hate masculinity. He denies his own masculinity. And he finds if he acts like a girl, there is some chance of escaping the aggressive father. He does not like masculinity. So he turns to girlish ways. So that was a sociological phenomenon that could be understood. But in more recent times, here is one of my hypotheses on this issue. The digital screen, people are so much on the digital screen that they have no time for interaction. It is at the age of 8 that girl child feels really girl-like and like boys at the age of 8. Boy child feels boyish and likes girls. So even among siblings, girl and boy, you have to take care that they don't get into mischief by experiments. Now, this comes by constant association, playing together, doing things together, birthday parties and whatnot. But when they are so glued on the digital screen, they don't get this personal interaction, girl and boy, that establishes for them the gender identity in interaction. She is she, I am he. When that is not there, it's all just some flotsam. And on the screen, digital screen, in cartoons and so on, they all the time see asexual features, asexual creatures. You can't say who's what. they all look alike. So the screen drives them to think of a world like that, maybe boy, maybe girl. Then with the dopamine secretion and stimulation that the screen does, the screen secretes dopamine and it doesn't come down. Then dopamine begins to interfere with the action of testosterone in boys and with the action of estrogens in the girls. So those receptors are overdriven by the dopaminergic influence. Therefore, they are not enjoying or feeling together what gender they are, what physical features they are for boys, what physical drives that are there for boys, and what physical drives that are there for girls. So they grow up in that it can be this or it can be that. So it's a world of negation that has brought the transgender issue and the LGBTQ issue now, which is a global agenda of cancel culture, woke culture. So I tried to be scientific on it. I have strong views on it, but we have to be scientific on it at the same time. So I trust this exploration of 12 houses of influence, 7 invasions that come at an hour of iniquity. How do you appoint the hour of restoration into a daily cycle, not to allow the hour of iniquity to go unattended? So the industry of the day is sufficient thereunto. Good Shepherd said that. Attend on the stuff well and let your child or yourself go to sleep on GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. That's it. Feeling you get like a little child. You say he's like a child when he's sleeping. You say that of your husband, little child. And so that gamma aminobutyric acid is the one that sets you up for empathy. At 9 in the night, I have told you how the 12 hours work. If you need that clip, please send 12 hours. How do they work? Send me a WhatsApp message to +9476 313 4800. So that hour of restoration can look after, stop the hour of iniquity working into your life and corroding your life because you didn't attend on it, or corroding the life of your son or daughter because you didn't attend on it. For the hour of iniquity, you appoint hour of restoration. Thank you for listening. We'll meet again sometime.